And welcome to our 50 Shades of Social Selling webinar. I'm excited to be here with my co-host Kurt Shaver to talk to you about something near and dear to our hearts. How do you connect with customers in our overconnected, overcommunicated world today to stay top of mind, to turn connections into conversations and relationships into mutually beneficial business outcomes? Notice I didn't say revenue, because ultimately relationships aren't all about money. They're about identifying other people that you can serve and help grow, because I believe the more you help others grow, the more you'll grow. My name is John Ferrara. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Nimble, and we're dedicated to helping you nurture and build relationships to help other people grow. And Kurt Shaver and I are here today to talk about how you can connect to people important in your network to nurture your brand and grow your network. Kurt, good morning.
Hey, John, good morning. And I am looking forward to our webinar today, talking about 50 Shades of Social Selling, right? And how appropriate. We got two 50-year-old guys with gray hair talking about social selling. But I think that why I'm so excited about this is, as you know, I really tend to focus very much on the business side of social selling, and particularly using the LinkedIn network. So I'm going to do the deep dive on that, and really looking forward to all the things that I've learned from you, how it goes much broader than just LinkedIn. Looking forward to sharing that with other people. So here is the agenda that we promised you in the promotions. We're going to talk about these 4 areas of social selling. So the first one, social listening, really has to do with setting up the right filters so you can separate the signal from the noise and the volumes of the social streams. And then we're going to talk about social research, the distinction there being that's really a much more proactive activity where you have a connection, a contact, or a company that you're doing research on. Then we're going to talk about the social networking piece. John used the word relationships, and that's really what that's all about. And then finally, we're going to talk about really the biggest opportunity, the newest frontier of social, which is the engagement part, which really centers around content, sharing it to demonstrate subject matter expertise and build up that trust that is so critical in the sales cycle. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to step through those 4, showing you guys some specific deep dive tactics on LinkedIn, and then John is going to jump in and provide some color around that, again, to expand it beyond just LinkedIn. And then I'll hand it back over to him, where he's going to go over and talk about some other shades of social selling. So with that, let's get rolling. All right, so the first one up is we're going to be talking about the social listening piece. But before we do that, we wanted to get kind of a feel for who we've got on the line right here. And when we say who we have, we really mean who we have in terms of different roles. So I'm going to post a poll here and just ask, I'll give you a little background music to think about it, but I want to just ask people, what is your role? Whoops, sorry, I put up the wrong flow. Let me close that one. Let's get this one. That one's coming up, sneak peek. So what is your role? Who are you?
I love The Who. One of the things I love about this song is I really believe that when you connect with other people, you want to really know who they are and what their business is about and how you might serve them and help them grow. And so whenever you connect with somebody, make sure that you ask simple questions and listen. Prepare before meetings and be prepared to understand who somebody is and how you might help them grow. I think that's what we're here for. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, I think that everything about social really brings back the professional salesperson. I mean, I think 15 years ago, everybody was worried about the professional salesperson disappearing because of e-commerce and the internet. And I think that just everything about social is so rooted in the fundamentals of relationships and selling. It's just that it's technology to do it. So we've got everybody weighed in on the poll. I'm going to go ahead and close that and then share the results with everybody so you know who we've got on the line. We can see that over half of our group are individual salespeople, which is fantastic. We've got just a few people in sales management, some in marketing, and a lot of business owners and executives. Almost a third of the crowd are business owners or executives. So with that, I will hide those results. Thanks for everybody for participating in that. And now we're going to get on to talk about the first piece of it, social listening. All right, so as I said in the startup, social listening is about setting up some filters to listen to the things that you want to pick out from this noise on the social web, right? So no, we are not here announcing our new social listening tool, as you see right there, but just to kind of give the idea of what's going on with social listening. So I'm going to show you guys one particular element of it by jumping now over into my own LinkedIn account. And there you are. You see I'm on my LinkedIn homepage. So I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through a scenario of where you might be using LinkedIn in kind of an advanced social listening mode. And for this purpose, I'm going to move my control screen a little bit. Make sure John can see where his Nimble extension is. So this is the way I'm going to start. I use the advanced search a lot. That's obviously the best way to cull through the LinkedIn database of 375 million business professionals. But rather than set up a particular search, I'm going to jump in and look at one of my saved searches, because I have a number of those criteria set up. And here's one I have set up since I essentially sell sales training, social selling training to people. One of the criteria that I have set up is sales enablement. I'm looking for people that are in sales enablement, have that in their title some way, shape, or form. So this is just giving an example of it. I set this criteria up to be VPs of sales in the United States of companies 5,000 users or more. You can see up at the top I got 479 of those results. Now, what's more important than finding that, to me, is using the saved search feature of LinkedIn, because the saved search feature of LinkedIn now will send me fresh leads every week that fit that criteria. So what you're looking at now is my Gmail account, an email that I have that LinkedIn sent me last week of new people that fit that criteria. And so this is a really valuable, obviously, listening opportunity for me to find out what's going on. So let's just say I want to come down and pick one of these folks, find out a little bit more. So I'm going to pick the third one here, Krendel Kier, Vice President, Sales Operation at Arison. So I'm just going to click through to her LinkedIn profile, and now I'm just trying to find a little bit of information to see if indeed this person might be an interesting prospect for me. Again, remember, the automatic saved search alerted me to that person. That was the filter that I'd set up, and now I'm just doing a little bit of sales prospecting. Now the first thing I'm going to look at is if they're new into that list, chances are usually good that they've recently taken that position. And in fact, if you are like me and you look for VPs of sales and marketing, you'll find out a lot of them start in January and February, and you can see that was the case here with Krendel Kier. She started 2 months ago for this company called Arison. Now, when I look at that, I have to admit to you, I've never heard of Arison. I don't know how big is that company. So I'm going to click through to their profile here on LinkedIn, and I can see, wow, that's a pretty big company. I'm looking right over here now that tells me they have 11,000 employees. That is a pretty big company. So what I've discovered is that there's a brand new VP of Sales Operations at a company based in Redwood City, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, a worldwide company, 11,000 employees, and there's somebody new on the case that's looking for a way to improve their sales. So bingo, right off the bat, that is a great, sorry, I just wanted to go back. That is a great opportunity for me, and again, just realize that this is just representing, one of 40 new results that I got for last week. Now I know at this point, John,
can I interrupt you a little bit here?
Yeah, John, jump in.
If I'm looking at a person brand new and I'm looking at their LinkedIn resume, it does tell you what they want you to know. But ultimately, for you to truly understand who somebody is and what their company is about, it's great to know if you or your team have had any interaction with them, if you're connected with them at all on any of the social channels, and to actually look beyond the one dimension of LinkedIn into a multi-dimension, because I think in order to find a point on a map, you need at least 3 data points, longitude, latitude, and altitude. What I love to do when I connect with people is nimble them. And so I'm just going to take advantage of the opportunity to look beyond their LinkedIn here and just see what else we know about them. So I'm previewing our brand new LinkedIn, our brand new Nimble Smart Contacts widget, where I could actually look at somebody and build a live profile off them. And right now, this person isn't in Nimble, but if I added them to Nimble, I could easily look beyond their LinkedIn in many cases and get a complete picture of them, including their company information.
Hey,
Within.
John, can I just jump in to spotlight something?
Sure.
Before you jump into all the wonderful things you're going to do, what you just did to me is like the most powerful holy grail marriage between social and CRM ever, right? And you just blew right through it. I mean, because you're so used to it. But basically, in one click, you just loaded somebody whose LinkedIn profile I'm looking at. You just loaded it into my CRM system.
I did.
That is huge, 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 huge. Salespeople do not like to type data into CRM systems. So that thing you just did is, I mean, hey, that's worth the price of admission.
But you know what I love about your saved searches? Can we go back to your list of saved searches that you did?
In the email, this one, or in LinkedIn?
In LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What generates these saved searches? Because I love how you let LinkedIn go and find leads for you. And so I love that engine that you've built. I'd love you to explain the logic behind the searches that you do, why you do them, and then what steps you would do to connect with one of these people in an authentic and relevant way to turn that connection into an opportunity for you to serve them.
So, okay, so is this where you want to be, where my list of people that fit that criteria? This is my saved search for sales enablement VPs.
Yeah, I'd like you to teach people how to build these saved searches and why you build the saved search. And after you identify somebody in that saved search, how you would reach out to them.
So I'll just tell it real quick rather than show it, because otherwise we're going to get like way too far down into a detail. But I mean, LinkedIn has 375 million business professionals in it. First thing is you have to know in your brain what is your target profile based on the 5 or 6 primary criteria LinkedIn gives you: title, industry, location, keywords, certainly. These are all the things that you get for free in order to describe your connections. And then if you're on one of the premium versions of LinkedIn, you can see what I've used here is I've said I just want people in the sales function, I just want people of a VP seniority level, and I just want people of company sizes 5,000 and above. So that criteria allowed me to whittle down 375 million people to just 479. So that I'm starting with my smaller group. Is that what you wanted me to cover?
Yeah, I think you went by that pretty fast and just wanted people to understand how to build these groups, and they just saw a good idea of how to do that. Now, once you get those leads in your inbox, how would you reach out to a person? So pick somebody that you think is a good prospect and why you think they're good, and then what you would do next.
All right, so let's take Armando Garcia right here, I guess. VP of pricing strategy. I don't know if that's as interesting. Whoops, sorry about that. So how about VP of worldwide sales operations at NetApp? I think we're both mousing though. So if we took that particular one, right, this is where now you want to come up with some. There's a lot of different ways that you might approach somebody, right? It might be because I've worked at Juniper and Cisco and I can name drop other companies in their field, or it might be because we're going to share some common connections. Now, I'm already connected on level 1 with Jane, but I could come down here and I can see, well, who do we share of connections? People in here, Anna Caselli or Jim Dickey from CSO Insights. And I could so I might come in through some kind of referral. I might come in through a name drop. I might come in through, I've worked with clients in your business. I might, there's a lot of different ways you can come in the door for reaching out and approaching someone.
Awesome. Keep going.
Okay, so I guess if I look at the hierarchy of this, how I reach out, I rank common connections as the top priority. So if you do have common connections that indicate yes, they really do know a person, they know your work, and they're comfortable referring you, I think that's always the best. Short of that, you have to come up with something. And I think what one of your points was that you have a certain amount of information that's kind of that public controlled persona in LinkedIn, but there's lots of other types of information that could give you one. I'll give you a perfect example. I actually connected with the VP of sales of a large international staffing company. I actually had a little bit of trouble working my sort of usual 2 or 3 tricks through LinkedIn. I went to his Twitter account. I saw he had posted some information about going to a Garth Brooks concert that weekend before, and I was able to refer to Garth Brooks in the subject line of an email that ultimately got his attention. So that's an example of kind of one of the other shades of social selling, of picking something a little bit out of their personal life that's on the social footprint and using that to get attention.
But isn't that the way that business has always been done? People buy from people they like, and they like people who know them. And don't we build relationships by sharing areas of commonality, of passion and interest, and developing intimacy and trust so that they open up to us about their business issues, which as a professional we can then solve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, all the fundamentals apply, right? Hey, John, when you and I started selling 30 years ago, we were taught to walk into the prospect's office and see if they had a fish on the wall or their kid's baseball picture on the desk, or something like that. And of course, we were all used to getting the business journal for our town and opening it up every week and flipping through it and seeing movers and shakers, or who was recommended for something, or is serving on the United Way board. So all of those things are the same. It's just that with social, it's so much easier if you know how to do it.
Absolutely. But I think it's important to make sure that people understand that beyond getting right into the saved searches, that it's important to build an identity. Why don't we go to your LinkedIn profile and look at how you set up your identity? Because I don't necessarily think that we need to go into this deep dive right now, but make sure that you have a great photograph where people can see your eyes, because I think that people connect through human faces. Make sure that you have a core summary about who you are, how to connect with you. I love the fact that you have your email right there. And then put in things that set yourself up as a trusted advisor, as an expert. So rather than you telling people how great you are, what you're doing is you're showing them how you can help them become great. Because I think people buy a better version of themselves. So you've got a great picture, you've got information on there about how you might help them grow, recommendations, and other pieces of information that people see you as a thought leader. So when they need somebody to help them grow their sales or their sales team, they not only think of you, but they bring their friends. So that's the basics. And then once you set up your identity, then you want to begin to make sure that you listen, connect with others, and build your network. And that's what you're going to teach us how to do, right, Kurt?
Right, absolutely. Well, thanks for the plug there on the profile. So I'm going to march ahead so we can kind of keep on track. That was really social listening, finding people. The kind of main feature we were using there was the LinkedIn Safe Search. So now I want to talk about this idea of social research. And again, the distinction between social listening and social research is that while social listening is sort of like, hey, I want to set up a filter to catch the stuff that's important to me that's going through in this high volume river. Social research is where you pointedly have a specific person or connection that you want to go and find. So again, if I just wanted to find that, I may come back to my home page, to my advanced search. You can see that I use the saved searches quite a bit. If you're on the free version of LinkedIn, you get 3 saved searches. I'm on one of the premium versions of LinkedIn, so I get more saved searches. I've got 10 of them here. But here is another search which is interesting. This one happens to be VPs of sales that are also in like social media or social selling groups on LinkedIn. So it tells me that, yes, they're my target market, but they've also demonstrated an interest in the kinds of services and training that I provide. So with that being in mind, let's pick somebody here. This would be a good one for what I want to show you. I assume Peter Caputa, who's the VP of Sales of HubSpot. Now, HubSpot is big into the inbound marketing, right? So what I'm trying to do here is to just figure out, can I find something out about him by coming to it's almost a secret little black arrow. You see that tiny little black arrow there? When I scroll over it, kicks up this drop down with all these, these just little hidden Easter eggs underneath it. What I want to look at is I want to look at recent activity to see if I can gain some insights into what he's interested in or what he's talking about. And again, remember, this is one slice. This is just the LinkedIn slice of his world. But given that they do a lot with content, we can see obviously he's pretty active here, and I could get a really good read on the types of things that he's either publishing or liking or following and that type of thing. So that's a good way to get a hold of somebody. Likewise, if I come in and find, let me just find somebody else that's in that same list. Okay, so if I come down and look at this fella, again, I might come over here and look for recent activity, and I can see in this case, I don't have anything. So it just means he's not commenting and publishing and super active on LinkedIn. So in this kind of a situation, again, I could look at common connections, and I could peruse his profile to see what I could glean. But this is going to be the perfect example where now I need to sort of turn to something else, right?
Yeah, let's go back to Peter for a second.
Okay.
Because I was looking at Peter and I saw the post that he was doing, but I'm not sure if you really got anything personal that you might connect to him on. And so let's look at that as an example.
Where did he go? That's crazy. I'm going back to I'm trying to find Peter. I'm going back to my list. There he is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So your point was not a lot of insight from.
Yeah. Let's see on his record here for a second.
Okay.
So I'm sitting on his record and I'm looking through it, and I don't really see a whole lot that I really could understand who he's about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on what I would do is I'd go look at his Twitter and his Facebook and his Instagram and his other channels to get a complete view of him. But ultimately, that's a lot of work to go ahead and build all that stuff and look at all that additional information to try to find all that information. And so what I would do is I'd go and I'd try to Nimble him. And I look at this and I see that he's already in your database. So you have a relationship with him. Nimble's telling me that some of the information differs, so we're going to update some of that information. Looks like he might have changed position since you originally put him in here. And then basically you could then go ahead and see a complete view of him if you were to scroll down this window, and I can't scroll it, the Nimble window here. You could actually, if you could scroll that for me, I can't do that with my mouse. Just scroll the Nimble window down. Just scroll it with your mouse. Just go ahead and just scroll with your, highlight in that area and just scroll with your mouse. There you go. So I could see where he's from, what he's influential in. I could also go and look at his streams. So I can look at what he's talking about and who he's talking to and interact with all that and see the history of who he is. So ultimately, with one button, what it does is it basically pulls in all the other channels that that person might have in order for you to build a complete picture. And I'm gonna show you another example. Here's a guy, Dharmesh Shah. Dharmesh is an interesting fellow, dear friend of mine. We share a lot of common passions and interests. But did you see what Nimble just did by building his profile across Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Foursquare, Angel List, and then basically allowing me to get all the details that I would need in order to understand completely who he is, add him to the database, and then begin to walk in his digital footprint. I could see he invests in a lot of companies. Walk in his digital footprint and begin to add value to his conversation so that when I did reach out, it'd be a warm call rather than a cold call. And I think that's how you begin to reach out and build relationships, because if you go in immediately and send him a a LinkedIn invite, that's a cold call. And so ultimately what you want to do is walk in his digital footprint, understand who he is, what his company's about, add value to his conversation, and then when you do reach out on the channel that might be a little bit more personal and relevant between the two of you. And I think that's something that makes it easier to connect beyond the sort of the LinkedIn boardroom, because sometimes I feel like LinkedIn is the lobby of a business or the boardroom or the office, but you get a lot more done by going on a walk with somebody, taking them to lunch, and really getting to know them. What do you think, Kurt?
Well, I think you're making a very valid point, but I'm going to sort of add to it to say that I think it's not necessarily like one network is better than a network. I think your point is you want to connect with the person on the network they use a lot, right?
Yes.
So like in my case, you couldn't apply the lesson to say, hey, reach out to Kurt that's on something that's more comfortable and familiar, because quite frankly, I'm not really on any other network. Really, except LinkedIn. So in my case, LinkedIn would be the way you would want to communicate with me. However, if we came in and looked at any of these other 5 or 6 people that we looked at, and we like the guy we just looked at that had 0 activity on LinkedIn, you'd probably say, well, and then if we went over and looked at Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, or something else, and we see he was posting like crazy, then we would know that's probably the avenue to go in. So I think the valid point is, communicate with the person on the one that's likely to have the best success.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to research. That was social research, digging into people. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about social networking. So social networking, again, this is where the word relationship we've heard so much really comes about. And one of the great applications that I like within LinkedIn to do it, and I'm sure everybody's seen it, it's just a question of whether you use it, it's that keep in touch feature, which is found right up here in the connections area. So I typically will spend about 5 minutes every morning just jumping into that and seeing, what LinkedIn is going to tell me about work anniversaries, promotions, mentions in the news, and of course, happy birthdays. And in fact, I use it so much that I'm going to bring up I'm going to bring up my Word app here and just show you that I've got this is my boilerplate copy for LinkedIn situations, and you can see I've got a lot of boilerplate copy for various LinkedIn situations here. However, the one I'm going to use right here that I use for the keep in touch feature is, you can see what I've got here is I've got a standard reply for every day of the week. Now today happens to be Thursday, so everybody's going to get this message, which says Thursdays are a great excuse to start the weekend early. And the reason I do that is because I'm going to see, with 5,000 connections here, I'm always going to have 5 to 10 people that are having birthdays on any one particular day. Now, if we take Michael Castro, for example, if I just click the happy birthday reminder there, I might be one of 6 or 7 people that wish him happy birthday using this LinkedIn feature. Now, if I just hit the send message, if I just hit send, I've differentiated let's say he's got 1,000 connections. 6 send happy birthday. So I've stood out now as one of 6 from his 1,000 people. But if I do that, guess what? I guarantee I am the one and only person that sent him, hey, happy birthday. Thursdays are a great way to start the weekend early. And I mean, look how easy it is here for me to actually just ping these people, right? It's the lightest touch. Again, back in the old days, if we had a Rolodex, right, and we're listening to Harvey McKay and his 66 items, we know we are going to write their birthday down on a little corner of our tattered 3x5 card so that we could send this person a birthday card 5 days before. Well, I'm basically doing the same thing here. And so whether it happens to be birthdays, new jobs mentioned in the news, or anything else, it's an opportunity for you to reach out, touch them with the slightest bit of effort. A little bit of top of mind might trigger a conversation. might trigger, oh, I'm glad you called. I've been meaning to contact you. We just acquired this company and need to train them all, or something like that. So that's just one of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about nurturing and relationships. John, what do you want to add to the relationship nurturing discussion?
Well, I think that context is always important to contacts. And if I were looking at one of these people and you were saying happy birthday to them, I think beyond saying something interesting about that sets you apart about the birthday is to bring in context about your relationship and to have a call to action as the next thing that you might, if you do have something you want to do with or for them, that you do that. And so I'm just going to pick on one of these people here. I'm going to pick on April Huff. And so basically, I'm going to turn Nimble on for a second. And assuming that you had this person already in your Nimble, in which case you typically would want to have already done that because you essentially would import your Nimble database into your system. Here's Linda, and essentially, if you imported Nimble into your LinkedIn into your Nimble, you would have all this basic information in there, but you'd also have the history of any conversation. So essentially, if once you import in your LinkedIn, you'd then have the history of all your conversations in here, and you'd see the history of the conversations as well as the what's going on in the rest of the world, what they might be posting. So you'd see if they posted something on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or something that would give you the context for you to then be able to add a little bit more personality to it, because I think that that's what really helps you to stand out in today's over-connected, over-communicated world, is to add that personality to things. So as I go through your platform here, if you'd added these people to Nimble, what you'd begin to see is that sort of bigger picture of that person to give you the ability to reach out in a more authentic and relevant way. So I love to use Nimble to Nimble people in my LinkedIn updates, really anywhere as you're working in LinkedIn. If you go to your homepage, because we could jump over to your homepage for a second, I love to Nimble people everywhere I work. So if I'm sitting here and I'm looking at these people, Nimble would essentially give me the ability to basically have the complete insights of them. So what I can see by working in your Nimble system, that you've probably not imported these people from LinkedIn yet, but what I'm doing here is mapping these people for you. And so you see how I essentially just added Barbara to your Nimble system, and now I have Barbara mapped across all her identities, and I have all the details of Barbara from all her places, and I could begin to walk in her digital footprint to truly understand who she is, and all that with a simple click. What do you think of that?
John, are you actually the artificial intelligence behind Nimble? Are you like the man behind the curtain that's doing this for all of your clients?
No, this is magic that we built at Nimble. But ultimately what I'm saying is that you need context about contacts and companies for you to be able to serve them. And did you see how Nimble's given me the information about her company, given me information about her, all without all that work that we typically have to do to Google?
It's fantastic. I mean, it's saving hours and hours a day.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So I'm going to jump back and keep moving because we've got one more of these topics to speak about. So the last one is the social engagement piece of the equation. This is where content really starts to be important about what's going on. And so we talk about different things. One of my friends, Karen Clark, is a social media expert, really kind of specializes in the Facebook side of the equation. So we're kind of a nice yin and yang combination. And she uses a term of CPR. She says it's like social media CPR. And in this case, CPR stands for comment, post, and reply. So if you think about CPR as a life-saving technique. You can think about it for social media also as a business building technique. So let's look at a couple of ways to do that. Probably the easiest way is we can just start right where we were, which is the LinkedIn home page you all have, and there's going to be information there from your connections, sponsored updates if you're in the target audience of a particular advertiser, as well as information from news of companies that you might be following, which is very valuable. If you're sort of a big game hunter and you have sort of a short list of maybe 10 or 20 accounts you're targeting, it's great to follow them because their company news will show up in this feed. So when I come in here every morning and I kind of give it its 5-minute glance of information to look at, I'm really looking at this content with two different perspectives. So the first perspective is there a topic being discussed right there that I can add value to, right? Does it have something to do with selling, social, otherwise? Is there a topic there that I can add value to? That's one way I look at it. The other way I look at it is there a person there that's made that comment whose radar I want to register on? Because obviously if I go in and comment on something that they've posted, they're going to see that. So as I scroll down and I look at, and again, I'm going to spend 1 minute scrolling down and looking at 40 or 50 sort of posts here. I'm just kind of scanning real quickly to see, is there a topic I can add value to, or is there a person whose radar I want to register on? So that's sort of number one, looking at the homepage. Now,
Amy stands out to me. She's a big mover and shaker in IBM social business area. So why don't you Nimble her and see if she's in your database? Because why don't you bring Nimble up?
Okay.
And go hover on her name. And so basically I go and look at this and I see she's not in your Nimble, so let's add her. So add her LinkedIn, add her Twitter. Okay.
Let's see here.
I'll help you out here.
All right.
Okay, so there's that. And so now we'll add her to Nimble. And so now what you've just done is essentially put her into your Nimble system. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to her actual. Whoops, we got the wrong gal there. So I'm going to go to her LinkedIn page and show you how easy it is to add somebody directly to the platform. So here's Amy. She's not in your Nimble system. She happens to be head of social business at IBM, and if you were thinking about doing social selling training, Kurt, I'd highly recommend that you connect with her. I'm happy to intro you to her later on. But basically, did you see how easy it was for me to put her into the database where I have this company information about the company, who else you know at the company, as well as being able to walk in her digital footprint, and now you can go and tag her as somebody that you want to follow up and follow through with. You could go and schedule a task, because I believe the biggest problem with failure of business is lack of follow up and follow through. So remembering to do the things that you need to do, and so that's just a little tip on your sort of adding a little bit of depth to your perusing of your Today page.
Yeah, I mean that's fantastic there. I mean, basically just to kind of review for everybody as we were going kind of quickly. Basically, we took somebody that was in my level 1 LinkedIn but was not in my CRM system. So we took that person, put them in my CRM system, surrounded it with a lot of other social signals beyond just LinkedIn, and scheduled a task for me to ask John for a personal introduction to Amy, so I could do some huge social selling consulting project with IBM. That sounds pretty good outcome for this webinar. I hope all the attendees get as much out of it as I just did. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to check here. One other thing I'm going to mention on social engagement, then I'm going to pass it over to you. When you are posting information, and this would kind of bring us back here to the home page. I'll also mention, LinkedIn is in the midst of rolling out a brand new, fairly significant design change. And as I've trained people over the last month, I find some of them are on it and some of them are not. I got flipped over about 3 weeks ago. But one of the things that you will notice if you're on the new one, the ability to share an update is now one of these squares here. It used to be a whole open text box across here if you're on the older version. But now you've got to hit that share an update in order to get to it. So if you're sharing content, I tell salespeople there are 3 levels of sophistication. Okay, level 1, the most basic, is simply parrot your own company's propaganda. Okay, what I mean by that is just sign up for your company blog or follow your company on LinkedIn, just a LinkedIn company page. Just look at whatever marketing posts on a blog, news, press releases, CEO interviews, industry trends, white papers, whatever ends up coming out of your marketing. At the very minimum, salespeople, just parrot that, amplify it, share it. Okay. Level 2. Assuming you're looking at the internet at least a few minutes every day, you're running across other third-party content from, magazines, portals, industry websites, trade associations. Again, if you see something of value to their customers, number 2 is share third-party content. Level 2, sharing third-party content. Level 3 is where you are actually creating original content. Now that sometimes scares the marketing people, but if you have capable, smart, subject matter expert salespeople that are capable of penning, blogs or even just little content posts like that, you can do it. So that's the 3-tier stack: parrot your company propaganda, share third-party content, or create your own. Okay, so with that, I am going to get ready to transition, but first I'm going to ask people for we've got another poll question here. And for this poll question, what we want to ask people is to describe, what other channels are you? And I'll give you guys a chance to read this kind of funny whiteboard description of the multiple social channels that are out there. And as you're doing that, I'm going to bring up the poll that you guys saw a little bit earlier today when I gave you that inadvertent tease. And I'm going to go ahead and post that up and let people look at that poll. Actually, you know what? I might have messed it up when I opened it and closed it because I don't know if you can vote on it. I think that is the case. I think I messed it up when I opened it and closed it. So with that, John, I'm going to pass control to you and let you bring it home on just some of the other elements of going beyond. Let me pull you up here and... Okay, so I'm pushing control of the presentation to you.
I got control, roger that. Kurt, first off, I want to say that I was glued to the screen watching your magic in LinkedIn. I could watch you for hours. We'll have to just get together with some beers and trade tips. You with your LinkedIn tips and me with the other 50 shades of social selling. Because I truly believe that the more digital we get, the more human we need to be. And then it's not B2B or B2C, it's P2P and H2H. And to understand who somebody is, I think that a picture tells 1,000 words, and you need to connect on whatever channels that you can in order to nurture and build relationships. So as I build relationships with the influencers of my core constituency in and around the areas of promise of my product, and I know I said that fast, but I actually tried to say it slow, in order for you to build your brand and your business, because your network is your net worth. Your personal brand plus your professional network equals your professional net worth, and that you need to identify and connect with more than prospects and customers in order for you to grow your business. You need to connect with the influencers of your core prospects and customers in and around the areas of promise of your product. So imagine me trying to build not just the Nimble brand, but my own personal brand after being out of the technology business for 10 years, because it was well over, 25, 30 years ago that I invented CRM with a company called Goldmine. And I think that most of you probably never even heard of Goldmine. I'm looking for a picture. Here's me 30 years ago.
Hey, look at that guy.
But I used to do magic and juggling. But But the thing is that in order for me to build my brand back from nobody knew who I was to a company that is continuing to just grow tremendously, I had to identify the influencers of my core constituencies in and around the areas of promise of my product. And so basically, whether they're leaders in sales or marketing or social media or social business or social selling, how do I go and identify people that matter, reach out and build a relevant and authentic pay it forward relationship that results in not only those people becoming friends and customers, but also evangelists, where I am not only networking off their network, but the network of their networks. How do you do that in today's overconnected, overcommunicated world? I think that if you tried to go and build a connection by sending somebody LinkedIn invites and following up with LinkedIn messages would limit yourself to the multidimensionality of all the other networks that you could use to build relationships. And I'm going to tell you something. I get more relevant connections through Facebook with business leaders than I do through LinkedIn by two. And the reason is because I think that people can't connect on areas of commonality and passion and interest. And so let's start by saying that you should build an identity for yourself across all the core channels where your key community are having conversations. And today, for me, that includes Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, AngelList, Instagram, and others. And so what I've done is I've gone and built an identity on each of these places where I put a key profile, a basic bio, and I begin to share things that are a mixture of my passions and my interests, where I might share where I keynoted the Google conference about social selling, but also might share the sunset from that same event. I might share a photograph of a friend of mine sharing an old leather jacket that I gave him way too long ago. And I might share some music that I was listening to over the weekend. But ultimately, if you expose a little bit of your heart and soul to the people around you, they'll find ways to connect with you in ways that you've never imagined. And so I'm going to deep dive into an example of how I build my brand and nurture my network. And what I do is I, on a regular basis, share content to inspire and educate other people about how they can grow. So rather than me telling them how great Nimble is or how great John Ferrari is, what I do is I share content to inspire and educate others. And I call that the 5 E's of social business. Educate, enchant, engage, embrace, and empower your customers. And you do that by giving your knowledge away to set yourself up as a trusted advisor. And so what I do is I share that content across all of these channels. And you know, the thing is I actually mix business intelligence, how they can grow, with personal things on my social accounts, just like my other friends do, like Jamie Shanks. And what that does is it generates these +1 likes, comments, retweets, and otherwise engagements. These are the signals, the notifications of people biting on my content. And so what happens is when these people bite on my content, what I want to do is I want to reel them in and begin to build a relationship. The problem is that if you do what I'm telling you to do, is to share content to inspire and educate others in order to set yourself up as a trusted advisor, you're going to generate more signals than you can manage. So then how do you manage all the people that are connecting to you? You need a tool to help you identify the signals from the noise and raise those to you. And that's why I built the Nimble platform, because what it does on a daily basis, and I apologize for the bandsaw that's going on in the construction near our office, what it does is it will identify the people that matter and surface them for you to engage and determine if you want to set a touch cycle to stay in touch. And this is how I was able to see this guy named John Mason, which is why I know Amy, and remind me to tell you about John as well, Kurt. But basically, John Mason started following me on Twitter, and I would have never known that, because who has the time to go look at all the people that are following you on Twitter? Kurt, do you do that every day?
No, I do not.
Okay. So basically, I have thousands of followers and hundreds per day that follow me. How do you determine the needles from the haystack in this group? That's what I use a tool like Nimble to do. And what Nimble did is it showed me in the Nimble Daily that it sends me, as well as in my Today page, that this guy started following me, and I reeled him out of the river. Nimble built a record, and I immediately saw why Nimble thought he was important, because he's the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Mid-Market at IBM. Now, some people would just send him a LinkedIn invite. Other people might send him an email. God forbid you cold called him. What I did is I walked in his digital footprint, and I added value to his conversation by sharing some of his content and adding a little touch of support to it. And then what happened is he then thanked me. And then what I did is I went and I direct messaged him. So I DM'd him on Nimble. I sent him a message and a direct message on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, John, thanks for the follow. I'd love to connect and learn more about you and your team." He DM'd me his cell phone number 30 minutes later and said, "How's Friday?" And so a Twitter follow turned into a retweet, turned into a DM, turned into a calendar invite, turned into a LinkedIn connection, turned into a series of meetings, and now IBM is using Nimble for social selling around the globe. And that is the power of using whatever channel is most effective for your customer in order to build relationships in places that you could share a bit of your heart and soul and connect in a more authentic and relevant way. And ultimately, I think this is no different than the way we've always done business. People buy from people they like, and they like people who know them. And what you need to do is to connect with people, share your areas of passion and purpose, and then through that connection, you will then develop relationships where you can then turn those connections into mutually beneficial business outcomes. So what I'd like to do is quickly show you a little bit about the Nimble widget and show you how it gives you the power to take your network everywhere you go. So here is Brian Kramer, and here's his LinkedIn wall. And Brian does a great job of sharing his business side of himself, but ultimately I'm interested in all the aspects of Brian in order for me to develop a complete relationship. And so I do Nimble people everywhere I go, and I then have a view of them across all their different channels. So no matter where I am, I'm nimbling as I work, and I can add people to my Nimble platform if they're not already in there, and Nimble magically then gives me their identities across all their different platforms and enables me to connect in a relevant and authentic way. And this works even within the business tools that you use in today, including your CRM. And so if I'm sitting here and I'm looking and seeing that that guy we were just talking about, John Mason, was thanking me for something and telling me that I'm a true leader in social business. Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Mason. I can see the context to our relationship, when we last connected, and be able to do the follow-up and follow-through things that I need to do. And this is the future of work. I truly believe that going to a CRM to then log the things you Google about people and then go and engaging where we all live, which is our inbox, and not having the context wherever we are, you need that. And so no matter where you are, you have the ability to be nimble everywhere you work and take the insights of your network with you everywhere you go. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the big takeaway for everybody is that the idea with the 50 Stages of Social Selling is there are a lot of social streams, and it's growing every day for two reasons. Number one, the number of platforms are growing, and the participation on the platforms is growing. So there's many huge rivers of social information out there, and I think the takeaway point here is you use as many as possible to get the well-rounded picture of your prospect and engage them, and then you've got to have something that can harness it, filter it, manage it, vet it, and that's really what I love about Nimble.
So let's give these people some takeaways. I'd love to offer anybody who's listening today double the free trial that we normally get. Normally it's 2 weeks. I'd love you guys to take Nimble and help it power your network and your net worth. If you would like to do that, just sign up for Nimble at nimble.com, email info@nimble, and we will double your trial. Kurt?
Great. So you're going to double their trial. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to half their price on something. So if you wanted to really do the deep dive on LinkedIn, I brought out the Social Selling Bootcamp, which is a training guide. They're like playing cards, but you basically do 5 minutes a day, and you get a sales principle on one side, a LinkedIn action, a link to a video on the other side. And if you've got a team, you can even get the trainer's guide. But that's basically a 25-day, 5-minute a day program that I sell on my website for $39 a piece. And if you want to get that, then you can save 50% using the code 50shades. Just go to my website at thesalesfoundry.com. You can't miss the Social Selling Bootcamp cards, and just enter that code 50shades to save 50%.
Kurt, somebody was asking if you'd share your templates with the audience. So I'm putting you on the spot here.
I will tell you. I'll tell you what. I will be happy to share a public version of the template. In other words, there's some things that they're going to be so particular to me that won't help anybody. But I will create a public version that'll have the things of general use to everybody, and we can include that when we just send the follow-up email with the recording and the offers to everybody on the registration list.
And what I'd like to do is just recommend to people that they might want to use something like Auto Text Expander, which is a plug-in to your Chrome browser, and it'll allow you to have templates built into your keystrokes. So you can essentially put in keystrokes, put in the things you want to embed, and then embed those things anywhere as you work. So just my little tip on if you do want to create some template stuff, you want to be able to do that everywhere you work. Kurt, why don't you close us out?
All right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Our purpose here was really that twofold one-two punch of being able to do some deep dive on some LinkedIn tactics, but then at the same time be able to go beyond that and take into account all the various social signals that are out there, and show people ways that they can both get those signals and manage those signals as well. So with that, John, I think we're pretty much right at our time. I'm not sure if there's any questions in that that have come in that you really want to jump onto, or if we want to just wrap it up on time.
Well, you know what? I say let's try to answer the questions, because the people that want to stick around to get the answers, I think they might.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Kurt, that is your Twitter handle right there on the screen, right?
Okay, so why don't we do that? We'll say, hey, gee, officially we're done, but if you've got a question in the link, or you just want to stick around for 5 minutes and hear us talk about some of these questions, then we can certainly do that for about the next 5 minutes. Let's do it that way.
Okay, great. So if you have some questions, you could feel free to put them in the question box. If we do not get to your questions on the live broadcast, we will be happy to follow up and follow through with answers to your questions digitally. So also, I'd like to encourage you all to follow Kurt Shaver on Twitter. He's a wealth of sales, social selling information, and he's actually a very funny and great guy as well. I'm a little jealous about how young he looks. We're both the same age, and I want to drink from the fountain of youth that you.
It's all in the lighting.
Okay, great. But please follow us both on Twitter. Let us know how we can help you grow. Here's one of the questions that was raised. If you decide to connect via Twitter, what would be a few examples of tweets you'd use to start the conversation? I'm going to take that, Kurt. What I would do is I would walk in their digital footprint. So let's pretend that I'm going to connect with John Mason here. And so I wouldn't necessarily send him a direct message to begin with. What I would do is I would go ahead and share some of the stuff that I share that I value in what he's sharing. And I actually agree that IBM is becoming a global business thought leader. In fact, I not only started that and shared it, but what I did was I shared a post, and I basically attributed his name to it. And what he did is he then said, "Thanks, John. Great feedback from a true leader." So he then thanked me for sharing the article, and he then recognized me a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let that set. I'm not going to immediately reach out to John and do or ask him for anything. But what I just did was I just reset the touch cycle that I would have in Nimble for a person like John, and Nimble would then know that in 30 days, if I don't reach out and connect with him, that I might want to reconnect. And what I do again is begin to share his content. And what I do on a regular basis is I share other people's content, I add value to the conversation, and then rather than me having to cold call them, they actually reach out to me, and at that point, it's a warm call.
Yes.
So Kurt, here's one for you. At what point in one social media use is a social media tool like Nimble appropriate? I only have 500 on Twitter and 600 connections on LinkedIn. Is that enough for you to use Nimble?
Oh, absolutely, right. I mean, I would even say it's really not dependent on so much on the audience you've built necessarily, because what you're doing is there's two ways to use it, right? One is it's an aggregator, it's a filter, it's a collection point for everything else that you have going on with your contacts. So it really has to do with how many people are sort of like in your business sphere of influence, right? And then think about how many social channels they are on, and then you start to do that multiplication math, and you're going to realize you're talking about thousands and thousands of signals, right? Unless you only have two customers and one does Pinterest and the other does Facebook, right? If that is the case, maybe you don't need Nimble, but that's really the case for people, right? You're going to have tens or hundreds or thousands of business connections. I'm not talking customers, I'm talking business connections, partners, affiliates, acquaintances, things like that. And again, multiply that by the number of networks they may be on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're talking hundreds of thousands of streams. So that's the value of Nimble.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm going to take a LinkedIn one now. Do you have an example of a salesperson posting original content on LinkedIn or responses to content from perspective of a salesperson? So this is a dear friend of mine. His name is Tracy Kinsey. I taught him about social selling 5 years ago when I saw it emerging, and he's adopted it full force. He is the #1 sales rep for Microsoft CRM. So if you are thinking about adopting Microsoft CRM, you definitely need to talk to Tracy, because he's probably one of the most professional sales guys I've ever met in my life. But ultimately, you can look from his background that he's got a great profile. He's basically updating content on here on a regular basis, and if you were to go and walk in his digital footprint, we could then go ahead and see what he's sharing. So here's his stuff that he shares. So here's his stream, and you can see that he shares content about stories about Microsoft. He shares content about CRM as a whole. And he shares content about news that he's interested, as well as personal things, right? So he's talking about how he's out with his gals at a park. And I believe that it's okay to mix personal with business, because actually business has always been social since day one. And so as a salesperson, I think that that sharing content that inspires and educates others is the primary thing you want to do. So don't talk about your product. Talk about how you can help people grow. And so that's what I do on a regular basis, is I'm sharing content to inspire and educate other people about the promise of my products and services. And then what they do is they go, well, gosh, you seem to know a lot about sales and marketing and startups and entrepreneurship. What do you do? And I say, well, I actually build a product that'll help you do those things. So I'm a big believer in, if you teach people to fish, they'll figure out you sell fishing poles. So so let's see. There's
I see one more. So I'll take one more, and then if you want to take one more, and then we can wrap it up. So, There's one there that says, hey, this morning I tried to connect with targeted people who are in the same LinkedIn groups that I'm in, but when I clicked connect, there was not an option to select that we share the same group, so I couldn't connect with them. Yep. So I noticed that sometime over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, that LinkedIn removed the I'm in the same group relationship when you try to connect with people, right? So when you try to connect with somebody you're not connected to on LinkedIn, you're going to send them an invitation connection. It used to give you 5 or 6 different options there. It said, you're a coworker, you're a classmate, meaning you went to the same university, you're a friend of theirs, right? And then it says other. Yeah, pick somebody that's like a second level. I guess if you're going to do the demo, you need to go way far down on these pages. Yeah, scroll to the bottom of this page and go to like number 24. There you go. See if you can find a second level person, and then go to their profile. You see how well connected you are in this group. You're 25 pages deep, and you're still in your level 1 connections. That just means you got a big network, my friend. Connect with everybody in that group.
Sorry, hang on. Let me pull up another one.
Okay, pick up a group you're not as well connected in.
Like accounting.
That's your challenge.
Did you know I used to sell accounting software, and I don't know the difference between a debit and a credit? Hang on a second. Zendesk Evangelist, no. Professional Roundtable. Hang on, I'm going to find one here.
This is a testimony right here that you're struggling. See, this is a testimony of what a connected guy you are, John. You're struggling to find people that you are not connected to in order to demonstrate this question.
I love the fact that there's still more than 3/4 of the audience still here. Thank you guys for putting up with our intermittent technical difficulties. So, no, sorry.
Yeah. So,
you know what? Let's pick on one of these people. I don't know these people over here.
They've just got to be a second. There you go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you click the connect button, what this person's asking about is you're getting ready to send this person an invitation, and again, it used to in those choices there. It used to be sort of a get out of jail free card that I actually used to even mention in my training to join groups. People. One of the benefits of joining groups was it kind of gave you this free pass for inviting them right here. But if you're legitimately not a friend, you're kind of pushing it a little bit to send them an invitation indicating you are a friend. So that leaves you with the choice of saying other. If you pick other, LinkedIn, in order to cut down on spam, is going to challenge you with their email. So what I do in that situation, and John, you can educate me. I'm not sure if Nimble will find their email. What I've done up to this point of your fancy new browser extension is I will actually use SalesLoft in that situation, where SalesLoft is really good at finding the person's email, so then I can legitimately state my relationship is other. It's not one of the first 4. LinkedIn is going to ask me for the email. I ask LinkedIn for that person's email by looking at their profile in my browser, and then I'm still able to invite that person legitimately.
And many times, if you go into the contact info, people just list their email there, so that's also another.
Yeah, you mentioned, you commented on the fact I have my email actually in my headline, so sometimes you can find it on their profile, right? Yeah.
So let's close out with answer to one of these other questions, and that was the 5 E's of social business. Now, the 5 E's of social business will enable you to do what I think is critical to participate in your customer's decision journey. And this is essentially an updated journey that if you Google McKinsey customer journey, you'll get this, which essentially is a new model of the funnel that's over 100 years old. The new journey means you need to walk in your customer's digital footprint and add value to the conversation throughout the customer lifecycle in order to have the influence and top of mind that you need in order so that when they make a buying decision, they think of you. Because Mae West said, out of sight is out of mind is out of money, honey. The number one thing that drives customers to make buying decisions is recommendations from people they know. So how do you set yourself up as a thought leader? You share content to educate them. You enchant them by that being relevant and authentic. You engage with the intent to empower them to grow, because I truly believe that, as the genius Zig Ziglar said, the more people you can help grow, the more you will grow. Kurt, thank you so much for spending an hour with this wonderful community in helping them learn how they can turn their network into gold. Kurt, close it out.
John, it was a pleasure. I look forward to us getting shoulder to shoulder, doing some social networking over the beers that you promised me from a balcony overlooking Santa Monica Beach.
Amen. Thank you so much, you guys. Good luck and good selling.